I would ask everybody on Zoom to kindly mute yourselves, unless you have something smart to say, then you can unmute yourselves. But until then, please keep it muted. We get feedback here on our end. Thank you. All right, let's get started here. Okay.
I have a question. No, I have something. When someone there asks a question, I can't always understand it. Could you repeat it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. The shy. All right. Now we know we're in for a good one. All right, let's get started here. Or I should say, let us continue. What page? That's what I was going to ask you.
276 in the middle of the second paragraph.
All right, so 276, you say?
I think so.
Okay.
We didn't finish that paragraph.
No, we didn't. Okay. All right, so let's just recap what we were talking about in case anyone happens to not have been here.
Wait a second, though. I got to 78.
You've got 278. Does that mean you were reading ahead?
No,
Oh.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, let me recap what we did, and then we'll start together in the same place.
Okay.
Okay. So what we talked about was that we have this daily mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, and in Kriyat Shema we say that Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So we've been talking about that, and he hasn't quite tied it back into Kriyat Shema yet, but he's been talking about the relationship between the world and Hashem and Klal Yisrael and Hashem, and we talked about the concept of Melech, and we talked about the concept of Elokah and Elokim, and how we understood that everything that happens in the world happens because of Hashem. And Hashem is the only absolute existence, meaning that Hashem's existence is intrinsic, it needs to be. No other existence cannot be set up. And that Hashem's existence is entirely unique, to the point that nothing can even be compared. So we can't possibly understand Hashem, because the only way we can understand something is if we have a frame of reference. Since there is no frame of reference possible, because nothing can be compared to Hashem, so there's no way for us to understand Hashem as human beings. So then we spoke about how everything that goes on really is a product of Hashem's making it so. And part of that is that Hashem, in essence, shouldn't be able to have a relationship with us, because we're so far removed, we're so distant from Him, that there really shouldn't be possible to have a relationship. But Hashem, in the wording that Ramchal uses, wanted to lower His greatness, in a sense, and His honor, and wanted to create the possibility of having a relationship with His creatures. And that is why we have the world that we have today, in which we can have communication with Hashem, we can have a relationship with Hashem, we can connect with Hashem in certain ways, and all of that is only possible because Hashem changed the way things really should work. Because without that, it would be entirely a one-way relationship where we are purely receiving from Hashem, and Hashem is purely giving to us. Now, for the most part, that's still true. For the most part, there's nothing that we can do that gives anything to Hashem. Nevertheless, we do have the ability to now do things that can give honor to Hashem, so to speak. As he said, "B'rei v'am hadras melech." We have this idea that the more people who are involved in honoring Hashem, the more honor there is. So that means that Hashem created a system in which it's possible to grant honor to Hashem, even though, again, that shouldn't be possible. But Hashem made that possible, and that is now the way our relationship with Him is defined. Okay, so we said that the term Elokah and possibly Elokim refers to Hashem as being entirely powerful. Everything that exists is a product of Him. It is His existence that causes everything else to exist. And really that relationship is one. I'm sorry, that's not really a relationship. That is a one-way Hashem being the creator, the giver, and the recipients are just that. They're just the recipients, and there is no back and forth. There is no connection. But we also have this idea that he says of a melech, that not only is Hashem Elokah, but Hashem is also a melech, and a melech has a relationship with his constituents. Right? There is a concept of a malchus, a kingdom, and a melech, the king. So the king is related in a way to the kingdom, and the kingdom is related in a way to the king. So people can talk to a king, people can have a relationship with the king, or they can not have a relationship to the king. But the possibility exists. So those are two separate concepts that Ramchal is saying Hashem incorporated. One is his own actual existence, and one is the lowering of his honor, so to speak, to allow for our relationship to exist.
We are on 278, made a mistake.
Okay, so that takes us to...
I remember starting with Ulam over Ratzah B'Tzur Chazda.
Right, so we're in Bays, but we're not quite at the end of Bays. So mine has a paragraph that starts with Ve'ulam, shortly before the end of Bays. That's where you got it? Lynn's shaking her head, yes, okay. There's a few Ve'ulams. Okay. Okay, and look at that, it's dance. Okay. Okay. All right, so Ve'ulam, everybody got it on 278? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ulam. From this perspective, meaning the one of Hashem being the Melech, and we have a relationship with him, we are required to recognize this daily. And to accept or to uphold Hashem's kingship over us. And to be subservient to Hashem and to his decrees, like the concept that we are familiar with of servants to a king. And this is what is called Kabbalas al Malchus Shemayim, accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. And that concept is all included in the pasuk that we say of Shema. The Hainu, meaning ha'haida'a b'davar zeh, is to acknowledge this idea. Shehu melech malchei hamlachim, that Hashem is the king of all kings. Melech b'chol b'riyaisav ve'alyonim atachtonim, who rules over all of his creatures, both those in the upper and those in the lower realms. L'kabel al malchusay, and to accept the yoke of this kingship, v'hishtabed elav, and to be subservient to him, k'mash zacharnu, as we have mentioned. So he's saying that this idea of Shema is not only mentioning Elokeinu and Hashem, which are names that we've already described and talked about, but it's also talking about the concept of Malchus. Even though it doesn't say the word Malach anywhere, nevertheless it is referring to the concept of Malchus, and actually the I guess the greatest definition of Shema is Kabbalas al Malchus Shemayim, is accepting Hashem's kingship. So when we say Shema, we have to understand what we're doing here. We're taking everything that we've been learning about for the past 2 months of Hashem's existence being intrinsic, and how everything in the world exists through him, and everything is a product of him, and all of the ideas that are setting Hashem apart from everything else, and then taking that to the next level where Hashem lowers that to allow for us to have a relationship with him. All of that is what we are acknowledging when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And we are acknowledging that Hashem is our Melech, and in being our Melech, he is allowing us to have a relationship with him. But like any Malchus works, like any kingdom works, there are rules, there are laws, there are regulations, there are things you have to follow. So when we say Shema, we are accepting that relationship. We are accepting that Hashem's existence is beyond everything else, and Hashem's oneness is more one and more unique than everything else, and that Hashem is a king over us, and therefore we are accepting upon ourselves the yoke of His kingdom, which means we've got rules to follow.
Isn't that the part of why we say them both Shin Kavod Malchus Olam Vaed immediately afterwards? Because that's the Malchus part of it.
Yes. The Baruch Shem that we say is definitely connected to this. Yes. That it is, for sure. Okay. All right. So are this good here? Are these concepts clear? All right. This is like ABCs, right? Pretty much. Okay. All right. We're good? We're moving on? All right. Moving on. Gimel. The Amnam. Gosh, no Amnam's here. Oh, well. All right. Mikal ha'inyanim ha'elu. Because from all of these things, Yotzais Taldas Gedailas Latikun Kal Kalabriya. Great things come from this process that are there for the rectification of creation. Meaning to say, as we've learned already at length, the world needs fixing, needs rectifying, needs repair, and everything that Hashem does is part of that process. So everything that happens in the world is all part of this process of the world coming to its tikkun, to its reparation. V'zeh, and this means, ki ulam sidrei habriya v'chayneno yoiseha, because the processes and the mechanisms that are set up in the world, Misudarim b'derech, are arranged in a way shekasher malchusa yisbarach shemay naidas, that when Hashem's kingdom is known, umaydim ba'al kol beruv, and all of His creations are aware of this and they are acknowledging it, nimtza b'beruim kol toiv v'chol shav. Then what will exist amongst those creatures, those creations, is all good and all calm. Habracha misirabes bahem, and bracha will proliferate within us. Ushleima misgadel, and the peace, the tranquility will be great. That's all the way it's designed. However, when the servants who are supposed to be in line break out of that, and they are not subservient, and they're not acknowledging Hashem's kingdom, then all good is missing. And darkness becomes strengthened, and evil reigns. So, as we've said, this is not the first time we're discussing this. When the world is in a good place, and the world recognizes Hashem, everything's good. There's no need for any of the evil that exists in the world. Because the whole point of that is to get to this point. All of the evil that happens is because Hashem is getting to this point of everyone recognizing Hashem. But once we get to that point, there's no need for it anymore, and there will be no more evil in the world. But until then, it's what we have to contend with, and it's what we have to live with, but recognizing that that's all part of the process. So, Behine, Chaim, Nimshachim inyanim eila b'darchei Hashem, these concepts are all going, they're moving in the way of Hashem b'chal chelkei habriya, throughout all of creation, every aspect of creation. The upper realms and the lower realms, everything that's up in the kaiches, in the where the processes begin as they come down to this world and all the way down to here. Every single thing that goes on follows in this procedure. The things that cause and the things that are caused, as we learned about back in the first section. So this process, this is how the world works. That's it. However, All of this is hinged on the world recognizing Hashem. And if that recognition is going to reach its high point, the world will be calm and cool. When it's at its lowest, the world's at its worst. But the idea, this hinge point, what everything is based on, that is entirely, certainly based on the actions of those of us down here. We've already explained all this in the proper places. But he's saying, understand that this entire process that spans all of the different realms, everything from Hashem down to here, all of that depends on our decisions. All of that depends on the actions of mankind. So yes, the things that we do absolutely affect every single step, all the way up to Hashem. They're all affected by the things that we do. So again, if every
extent is recognition necessary?
I don't know that there is a specific threshold that he mentions anywhere, but when we get to a point that, as he said, the world is maida, that the world acknowledges Hashem's existence.
That'll be Mashiach.
I sure hope so.
I'm saying this because it certainly isn't now.
Right.
So that you
right.
need Vayir Bayamahu Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what you need.
That is the concept of Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Saying, understanding that there is a one creator.
Understanding that there is a creator itself is not enough. It has to be recognition of Hashem. So if the recognition of Hashem is skewed, then that's not a proper recognition of Hashem.
So how does one know that they have a proper recognition of Hashem?
How does one know that they have a proper recognition of Hashem? Well, that's what Torah is about. Torah is Hashem's wisdom. So as he said way back when, by studying Torah, we studying Hashem.
So most people nowadays, there's a few selected individuals in the world that maybe have a glimpse.
I don't know that but like I said, I don't know that there's a specific threshold that everybody has to reach, but I know for certain that the rest of the world doesn't need to learn Torah. Torah was given to us. The rest of the world has to still come to a recognition of Hashem, though, which means Mala Aretz Deyas Hashem, that the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, that people will recognize that there is a single creator who is all powerful, and that is probably the extent of what they're going to know. But that means there isn't going to be a partnership, right? Hashem has to be echad. Right. Hashem has to be unique. There can't be a trinity, right? And the belief, I would assume, is intrinsically connected to the belief in the Torah, which means that any belief that another nation is the chosen nation and that their version of Hashem's word is accurate is also going to be off the table, I would assume. So Islam, I don't think would count.
Fine, but the question is, how many Jews are there? I mean,
not about Jews. That's what I'm saying. It's not about Jews. This is about the world. This is about the world coming to recognition, not just the Jews.
Right, but
the Jews
think that they would be the beacon.
Yeah, we need to be.
So you can't.
We need to be the
if
beacon.
You don't know what the light is.
One second. We know what the light is. The question is, what does the rest of the world know? We don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't think there is a threshold that says you have to know this much. I think there has to be a recognition of Hashem, which the vast majority of the world doesn't. I don't think believing in a Trinity is called a recognition of Hashem. And and you have certainly probably billions of people today who don't believe in a God at all. Right? So these things are going to be problematic for reaching this goal.
Isn't that a bit of what it means, though? Hashem hu Moshe Bagoyim, where it's not the same relationship that we have. There's an acknowledgement that he's a ruler, and it's not necessarily going much further than that, more like a dictator than a melech, which is more of a give and take relationship.
Well, the ultimate is Mala Ha'aretz Deyas Hashem, that the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. And that knowledge of Hashem is V'yeda kol pa'ul ki alta fe'altai, V'yavin kol yitzur ki alta yitzartai. Every single thing in existence will recognize that Hashem is their creator.
Okay.
And one second, let me just finish that sentence. V'yomer kol Hashem l'shama ba'apai, Every single being that has an neshama will say, Hashem Elokai Yisrael Melech. That Hashem is the Melech. Malchusay b'kol mashallah. And his Malchus reigns over the entire world. So there will come a time where the whole world will come to that recognition.
So then what does it mean when it says Hashem is the Melech for Yisrael and he's the Nimshal, he's the Moshel on the Goyim? How does that...
What's the difference between Melech and Moshel? Okay, so the difference between Melech and Moshel is that Melech is someone who is chosen. A Moshel is someone who is self-appointed. So yes, for the rest of the world, they will not have had a choice in the matter. For us, we choose Hashem.
Okay. Understood. All right, thanks.
Okay. Okay, what else?
Oh no, I was going to say, is this the rove of humanity? Because I mean,
Does this need to be a majority?
Right.
So, his wording was, kol, all. Do we say Rubai Kakule? Majority is like all? I don't know. I would hope. but I don't know.
And then another distinction, you could have the knowledge of something, but not necessarily recognize or subjugate yourself to it. Like I can know something, but that doesn't mean I'm actually going to have a relationship with it. On the contrary, if I know it, I choose not to have a relationship with it.
Okay. So what are you getting at?
Meaning that I'm asking a question now. Is there, when the Ramchal is saying knowledge and recognition, and I don't know the Hebrew terms and how, if they're interchangeable or synonymous with each other, but are we talking about the ultimate knowledge being that I recognize and I subjugate myself, or just I have a knowledge, there is a Hashem, there's a prime mover, and that's all I really need to know?
Okay, so your question is, to what extent is this knowledge going to need to permeate? So the wording that he used was, well, let me bring you the wording from the contrast. In the contrast where he says where the world is not in that place, he says, when the servants break free, and they don't subjugate themselves, and they don't acknowledge Malchusay Yisbarach, Hashem's kingship, that's when the goodness is missing, etc., etc., etc. So the flip side is the opposite of that. That we're falling in line. We are avadim to Hashem. We are servants of Hashem, and we are subjugating ourselves to Him, and we are acknowledging His kingdom. So it sounds like those are the prerequisites to make this happen.
This is just applicable to Yidden, or
This is the world. This is not specific to the Jewish people. This is the world.
And what about like Amalek? What about there will be no?
They'll be gone. Well, what's with Amalek? I mean, we have a mitzvah to erase Amalek, and yeah, the time will come when that will be fulfilled.
So even the great atheists.
Yeah. All the great atheists are going to no longer be. Either they will no longer be, or they will no longer be atheists. But one way or the other, it'll be taken care of. Mala Art De'es Hashem. The world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem.
There will be no suffix.
There will be no suffix. That is correct. No doubts.
No agnostics then either.
No agnostics. No. That's it. It's gonna be clear. It's gonna be clear. It's gonna be known. Now, does that seem like a realistic thing in the future? I mean, it certainly doesn't seem like it, but as we know, Yeshua Hashem Karafine. And we'll actually talk about that a little bit. He makes a little hint to something here in a minute that we will talk about that a little bit more. Okay, what else? Anything else? Okay. Okay, so... Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there was any other points on the bottom here that I wanted to mention. I don't think so. I think we covered all of these. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay. However, that which we need for now, for us, tam if there will be a reason, there will be proper justifiable reason that Hashem should spread His influence over the world, and that His kingdom should be known throughout the world. Yimashech mizeh hatayv harav v'hashalva hagedola nivraim. Then from this will come the great good and the tremendous tranquility, and all of the good things that we mentioned will all come to the world. V'tirba ha'ara hakedosha v'hatahara, and the enlightenment of kedusha and tahara, of purity, holiness, v'chol davar tov, and all good things. V'koyches hara, and the powers of evil, nichtim, they will be subjugated, they will be lowered, mishubadim, and they will be subjugated, kalkalu tavas elam, and they will no longer be able to ruin the goodness of the world. So, let's understand what he just said here. This is a bit of a cryptic sentence. What he said was that if there is reason, then this will happen. Which sounds like what he's saying here is that this is a possible outcome that Hashem might make happen. That's what it sounds like.
Meaning without us.
Possibly without us deserving it,
So
correct.
6,000 comes to Moshe.
Right, so we'll see, yeah. So we'll have to see. He talks about a little bit more in the next paragraph, so let's keep going here.
And it's not that... I kind of was thinking that evil would be eradicated, but here, and before, I'm only noticing before also, that it sounds like the evil will be there, it just won't be able to do anything.
So Rabbi Goldman's pointing out here is that the wording that Ramchal uses is that the evil that's there will not be able to trifle with the goodness that is existent in the world at that time. So, I will read to you the way it's explained on the bottom over here in mine. Ramchal stated above in section 1 that when Hashem's oneness is revealed, evil becomes totally defeated and removed from the world. He writes here that even before that ultimate stage, when Hashem's sovereignty is acknowledged, evil will at least be sufficiently subdued so as not to cause damage to the creation. So the way he's understanding it is that these are two different steps. One is a step in which they will be powerless, and the second step is where they will be removed entirely.
And that step is also, he also said that there wasn't the Hakara yet.
And this is before the full acknowledgement of
Mm-hmm.
Hashem's sovereignty, correct? Yeah.
At that juncture, what happens to Bechira?
What happens to Bechira at that point? What happens to free choice? So at that point, free choice is pretty much eliminated. We go back to the state of pre-Adam and Chava. Not pre-Adam and Chava. Pre-Adam and Chava's sin in the Garden of Eden. At that point, there was Bechira, but it was of a very different nature. It was choosing between good and good, not between good and bad. So the choices that Adam and Chava needed to make regarding the eating from the tree were choices regarding what's the best way to serve Hashem. Is this venue the best way, or is that venue the best way? So that's the kind of Bechira that will still exist, presumably.
So the Tikkunim would have been done then?
Would the Tikkunim have been done? Would the world corrections have been... So that sounds like the process. In other words, the end of that process is that evil is eradicated. The beginning of that process is evil is subdued. So I think the whole concept of Mashiach, of Tchias HaMesim, all these things are all long processes. They're not like, boom, flip a switch and all of a sudden everybody's happy walking around smiling and it's sunny outside, right? It doesn't work that way. It's going to be a process. The whole thing is going to continue on potentially for, 1,000 years, more even. That this process needs to develop the world into its final state.
Right, this is not all going to be pleasantries and glitter.
Well,
along the way.
No, certainly, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about getting to this. I'm talking about even once this is here. Even once we have this state of Hashem's exerting His rule, so to speak, that people recognize Hashem, it's still going to be a process until that's perfected. In other words, the world still has to adjust to this new reality of recognizing there's a God and a creator and who runs the world. And that's going to be a process. It's not going to just, once people know that, say, okay, now everyone put down your swords, right? And everyone, burn your Qurans, right? It's going to be a long process where the world recognizes this creator, and now they have to figure out what to do with that. And that's where Mashiach comes in, and that's where, we're returning to Eretz Yisrael, the Beis Hamikdash, and the world slowly being educated and learning about the truth of the Torah and all of that. And over time, evil disappears. It's eradicated entirely. There's nothing left.
In this time frame you're speaking of, is this where Gog and Magog?
This is post Gog and Magog.
Post. Okay.
Yes, this is post Gog and Magog. Yes.
Bad.
Gog and Magog does not wipe out everyone who's bad. Gog and Magog certainly gets rid of the worst, but does not wipe out everybody who's bad. As a Jew, yes, that's not true of the rest of the world, though.
Yidden will be eradicated.
So once Gog and Magog happens, I thought that's how the whole rest of the world realizes that Hashem is.
They do, but even that, even once they recognize that, there's still an adjustment period that they need to now know what to do with this information. You take your average Filipino, and he sees, wow, this miraculous, crazy Armageddon war, right? And people survived. Okay, fine. So the Jews, they got it. Now what? Think all of a sudden he's like dropping his Buddhas? Saying like, there's a process that still needs educating and adjusting, and that's going to take generations. It's going to take a long time. But that will all start with Gog and Magog, and that will start with that global recognition. And then there's going to be the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and there's going to be Mashiach, and that process takes a long time. And then eventually the whole world will get to a point that they're recognizing, okay, this is accurate and everything else is not. But that's a process. I mean, that process could take hundreds of years.
This is chronological.
And the year 7,000.
Well, 7,000 is a whole other story. That's a whole other stage. Yeah, so between 6,000 and 7,000 is when things should be constantly improving and going up and up and up. 7,000 is already the stage at which the world ceases to exist as we know it.
So it's going to take generations and generations. And you're really running out of time.
Why? Let's say it takes 200 years. Yeah, 800 years beyond that. That's great. And even if it takes 1,000 years, so who cares?
Once 7,000 happens, I thought the Malachim flip around with their wings and the world ends.
Not the Malachim,
I mean
the Tzaddikim. Yes, and what happens at 7,000 is that the world in its physical state ends, and whatever that means, and the world is shemama, the world is desolate for 1,000 years, whatever that 1,000 years means at that point, and the new world that replaces it is purely spiritual. And that existence goes on forever.
Does this have to be
So get it in before then.
He's got a big torch to carry.
That's right.
We only have one son.
So I'm saying if it's generations for that process to happen,
Yeah.
then
Then what? What's wrong? Again, that process,
I thought Gog and Magog happens.
Gog and Magog is pre the year 6,000. From 6,000 to 7,000 is the time of Mashiach,
Right.
at the latest. Now, during that time, from 6,000 to 7,000, the world as a whole, both the world itself and the people in the world, are going to be transitioning, becoming more and more spiritual. That's a 1,000-year process. Now, our goal is to be ready for that before it happens. Or even better yet, to make it happen sooner.
Meaning this doesn't have to be in sequential order. It could be Mashiach comes today, and everything else will be all the things that we've outlined, or all these things would reorder the situation, right? Because we're talking chronologically or sequentially right now. This will happen. This will happen. This will happen. But could be Mashiach comes today, and then we enter into the.
Okay. So what you're pointing out, which is something that we mentioned, and we'll talk about it more in a little bit next week, is that the coming of Mashiach is certainly the major turning point in this whole process, for sure. Now, the question is, does that come as a result of our actions and being a light unto the nations and getting the world to a point where that it's ready for Mashiach? Or does it happen because Hashem says, okay, now's the time, we can't wait anymore, I'm just going to bring Mashiach, and that will be a result of the coming of Mashiach? And the answer is both of those are options. So the Derech Hashem says that yes, we're going to try to make it come sooner. But if it doesn't, at least we know there is a point at which Hashem says it's going to happen one way or the other. So both of what you're describing, both of those are options. Yeah, so it can go either way. Okay? Yes, everybody got it? Clear? Clear and easy? Simple stuff? Yeah. Bedtime reading. Okay.
It's almost as simple as Parshas Bereshis.
Yeah, exactly. It's right up there with Bereshis. Exactly. And it goes just about as quick. All right. Okay, so... yeah, let's go a little bit more here because I want to finish this idea. Okay, so the imlai, and if we do not, meaning if this doesn't happen, if Hashem doesn't see fit to bring all of this goodness to the world, to bring the recognition of His kingdom to the world, then Hine Hakadosh Baruch Hu mastir panav, and Hashem instead hides His face. Ve'enim megala kach moshalta, and He does not show the power of His sovereignty. V'kaychas hara mispartzim v'shaltim, and the powers of evil are rampant and they are reigning. V'chol todos ha'inyan hazeh, and everything that's a product of this process, havais b'chol makom shehein shayach sham, will happen wherever they land. V'hu klal kol haroisim tzayis ba'olam, and this includes all evil in the world. So what he's saying is that if we don't have this, if Hashem doesn't decide that it's time to bring His kingdom to the forefront of the knowledge of mankind, then evil will be manifest, and evil will run amok, and will rule. And that's the world, as he's saying, that we live in, and that covers every inch of the world. Evil, wherever, whatever way it manifests itself, is all a product of this. All a product of the same thing. And yes, and we were there 75 years ago, right, with the Holocaust, and we were there, throughout history, time and time again, where the world was just in a bad place. You had the world being in dark ages for big chunks of history, where the world itself was just not doing well. That's it's part of this process. All right, so let's just keep going here for a second. As Klal Yisrael strengthens itself every day with this, and they accept Hashem's kingdom, and they acknowledge it in their mouths and in their hearts, or their hearts and their mouths, I should say. That is how Hashem is spread throughout the world. And the powers of evil are dominated by the goodness. And bracha is able to flow to the world. So this is the idea. When we say Shema, what we're trying to do is bring about this goodness. That is what Shema does. Shema is so powerful that it's able to bring down this goodness to the world. Because, as we've said, the whole idea is that the world should recognize Hashem's sovereignty and Hashem's centrality and His intrinsic existence and His Melech-Eved relationship existence. And when we say Shema, we're proclaiming that. That's why you're supposed to say Shema out loud. You don't whisper Shema. You say Shema out loud because it's something the world needs to hear. And you say it, and you say it loud, and you say it proud, because this is Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim. This is accepting the yoke of Hashem's kingship upon ourselves, and that is the goal. This is what it can accomplish. It can accomplish bringing all of the goodness down into the world, but without it, goodness is not coming. Evil is going to be rampant, and it's going to be our own doing. So with that, we will take a pause and continue with Hashem next week. Now, who is around next week? Thanksgiving weekend? Anybody? Here? Not here? Not here? We got a couple of yeses. All right. Yeah, you're not going anywhere in Israel, huh? Okay. Okay. We'll send you a turkey. All right.
We've got some on the Neve campus these days.
Okay, good. All right.
Turkeys.
So I'm going to put on the chat next week, and we'll see who's around, and we'll make a decision next week if people are able to join on Zoom, or if not, or whatever, and we will decide from there. All right. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Can you take a question?